Rabbi Melech Plus Zatzal was one of the big poskim of our generation. He was a Talmud Muvak of Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal. He was the posik for Chai Lifeline, for Women's League. He had very broad shoulders. And he told his grandson, who went through a lot of pain, he said that when you need to use electronics on Shabbos, he said, Shabbos is a machnas eirich. This is your Einig Shabbos. And the grandson asked him, if I need to use it, does that mean that I'm not a Machal Shabbos? And he said, you're not a Machal Shabbos if you need to use your electronics on Shabbos. And the mommy's here as a witness. Poskim understand, some Poskim understand mental anguish. Rav Gavriel Zinner, Shlita, Yibadal L'chaim Tovim, so sein gesund, told me that a woman knocked on his door Friday night, and she said, I have a very big shaila. She said, I'm suicidal. So he was like shocked, like, okay, so let's go to the hospital. She said, what calms me down is sewing. Sewing is an av malacha. Can I sew? He said, of course you can sew. Go home and sew, and don't be suicidal. We know Hilchah Shabbos for Hatzalah, and we have to learn Hilchah Shabbos for mental pain. Reb Shmuel Birnbaum writes in Bekari Shemai that there's a machla, ma'od shchicha, very common, that's called dikaon. It's called depression. He says, and it seems to me, v'nira, shemuter lechalol Shabbos avur mi shesoivel mimachla zu. It seems to me that it's mutter to be machal Shabbos for someone who is suffering with this machla. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe it means going for a drive to calm them down. I don't know what it means. But we don't have a Shabbos problem. He says, it seems to me it's mutter to be machal Shabbos for someone with depression. And he says, because even if it's mild depression, he says, because when someone has depression, you don't know le'eza makam yachal istarder. You don't know how all of a sudden a person can go from being depressed to becoming suicidal. You don't know what can happen. And he says, and b'makam pikuach nefesh, ein halchem basar roiv, even a miyot is enough. Because people who are depressed can become suicidal and can do crazy things, can put their life in danger, can overdose, can do, we've seen, can hurt themselves, right? Therefore, mutter l'chal Shabbos avur mi shesoivel mimach lezu. That's Reb Shmuel Birnbaum, Sarah Torah of America, Rosh Yeshiva of Mir Yeshiva, the genius of America in the Litvish Belt. That's what he writes. That's what he says. And he says, and when it comes to Bikuach Nefesh, you don't go Basar Roiv. Even a miyut, you should be Machal Shabbos. So I always say, we don't do anything here without any Rabbanim. Every single one of you is under Rabbanim. And I've never gotten a no from a Rav, because the Rabbanim are understanding mental illness and pain more and more and more and more. Make sure whoever is guiding you is a bucky in understanding pain. One of the odd things that we have is that if you go with a chaysh and mishpat, money, business question to certain rabbanim, they're not afraid to tell you, I'm not an expert in chaysh and mishpat, find an expert who knows that. You can go with a nida shaila to certain rabbanim, and they'll say, that's not my thing, go to everybody in Bar Park, to Reb Chatzkel Roth, that's all. He was the big, him and his whole thing. Not every Rav does that. And we have to make sure not every Rav is a bucky in understanding kids who are sick. Not every Rav is a bucky understanding, even if they know chinuch, but they don't know the opposite once the kid is dropping out. The Nesiv Shalom writes, Yesh chinuch ragil v'yesh chinuch bayati. He says there's regular chinuch and then there's chinuch, crisis chinuch, problematic chinuch. The loy harizeh kaharizeh, and the rules don't apply to each other. And he says somebody who takes the rules of regular chinuch and applies it to somebody who's dealing with problematic chinuch, he makes the kid much worse. It's a terrible thing. One is sickness and pain and anguish and tsar, and the kid needs kiruv and love, and the other one is regular chinuch. Maybe he needs whatever he needs. So we have to make sure that we apply the proper medicine for the proper problem.